Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of It Ain't Weak to Speak. My name is Sam Webb, and this show is dedicated to ending the stigma around mental health through community, connection, and the hard-hitting truth. I'll be speaking with guests from all over the world about life to inspire and to educate people to speak up so that we can save more lives. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Well, I'm very, very, very lucky to be here today with another Californian local. She's based in between Venice and Santa Monica. Anna Wood, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. Thank you for having me, Sam. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do my best to keep up with you and keep up with your intellect. To give our listeners a little bit of background, you and I we've met once through a mutual friend, Miles Scott.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I quote him as that is because he's been on the podcast before. People might know who he is. And I'm glad that we met. I'm very, very fascinated about the work that you do, and I can't wait to dive into it in this episode.
Beautiful. Exciting.
So without further ado, and obviously just to dive straight into it, to give our listeners more background about who you are and where you actually really have come from and your passions behind becoming this transformational coach and dealing with spirituality and things like that. Because I really want to talk about that into this podcast, because it's certainly an area that I probably don't know a lot about. And I love bringing on guests who can help me. I like to think I'm a student of life. So I want you to be able to help me, help our listeners in that field. But that's part of your journey now. Where did all that come from? I want to dive deep into your passions, the whys.
Yeah.
How did you end up in this situation that you currently find yourself in?
Yeah. It's been a winding road, and it all makes perfect sense in retrospect. Of course, along my journey, there were many times where I didn't know where I was going, but I was born and raised in Silicon Valley. That's where I lived most of my life. And Silicon Valley, it's super cerebral, really high achieving, mostly atheist. And I was born this very, very spiritual old soul. When I was a kid, I could see energy. I had a lot of extrasensory abilities. And I very quickly learned that other people didn't have these abilities. And I kind of shut them down. It was like my biggest secret. I really thought something was wrong with me when I was growing up. But I was very good at playing the earth game and getting rewarded for being successful in Silicon Valley. So when I was growing up, I went to achieve all of these things that I thought were going to make me happy. I was programmed to think were going to make me happy. So I was, president of everything, all the sports teams, all of that. And I really focused on credentials. So I went to UC Berkeley undergrad and worked at Google for years and got my Stanford MBA. I was always on the seeking path, the personal development path. I designed my own major around it in college and started coaching while I was at Google, and also was an Arbuckle fellow during business school at Stanford.
What's an Arbuckle fellow? Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, an Arbuckle fellow is this really incredible program within Stanford Business School where you train to be a transformational coach. And while I was in that program, it was really obvious, this is my gift. Okay. And I know that I'm an amazing coach. Part of the reason I'm an amazing coach is because I can see who people really are, and I see the best version of them, and I help them see that in themselves and take off what I call coats. Your coats are everything that's dimming your true energetic signature, which is who you really are. So things like your limiting beliefs, your fears, the negative things you tell yourself about yourself. So I built this coaching business out of business school, and it was really founded on, I guess, more socially accepted in the tech world terminology and personal development techniques. But really where I found to get the most power was from the spirit world. and, having this knowledge that I'm a spiritual being, receiving guidance from my guides, from the guides of the people I work with. And I graduated from business school. I was engaged at the time, and I had all of these things that were supposed to make me happy. I remember for most of my life thinking, I'm going to be happy when I graduate from this, when I get this degree.
What do you think made you think that you were going to be happy when you got these things? You graduated, undergrad at both Ivy League schools, by the way. And I don't know if you guys still call it that over here, but in Australia, we're like, these are like the Ivy League schools, the best of the best, the Harvards.
Yeah, they're the Ivies of the West, the Ivies are all East Coast, but Stanford and Berkeley, Ivies of the West, you might say. They're incredible institutions. But it's programming, from a very young age, especially where I grew up, we're taught that if you want to be successful, and remember, success is what you make of it. To me, success is happiness, is fulfillment, is serving people, and serving myself. But oftentimes we're taught to believe success is a certain amount of money or a certain position at a certain company.
But we learnt that through schools, even through junior school, primary, we call it primary school in Australia, junior school here in the States, middle school, high school, even through family upbringings, parents, the way you train, the way you teach. And that's just the way of life. No one would ever sit here and say, okay, what's your goal in life? I want to be happy. I want to be doing things that are purpose-driven, meaningful, adding value to people's life, adding value to my own life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We can optimize for happiness itself instead of optimizing for these things that we're taught will make us happy. And I remember being in second grade saying, I have to go to Stanford and nowhere else. So it starts really, really young. Wow. And I'm, by the way, so grateful I had those experiences. They taught me so much. Every single part of my journey was so important. But, I looked around and realized these things that were supposed to make me happy were not making me happy. And because I was neglecting who I really am as a spiritual being and a spiritual teacher, it manifested in all sorts of negative ways. I had crippling OCD ever since I was very, very young. Couldn't leave my room for hours. I struggled with anxiety, depression, being overweight. It manifested in different ways throughout different phases of my life. And as a seeker, as someone who's always focused on my own evolution, I really went within and I found answers looking within my own soul that I never found at these academic institutions. And it was far more profound looking within myself than looking within a book or anything like that. And ultimately, I made the decision to make this my life. And I called off my wedding. I switched up a lot of things about my life and basically burnt it to the ground to rebuild like a phoenix. And I also really came out of the closet spiritually, which was my biggest fear.
Okay.
It still is in a lot of ways. It's something that I still am constantly pulling back more layers about. But I had grown up in this environment where if you even suggest that, the way you receive information is from higher dimensional realms, people think you're crazy or you might lose your credibility. And that was something that I really got to step into anyways, with the power of speaking my truth. And I've found speaking your truth to be a super highway to higher consciousness and to really finding your people. Now people see who I am and seek me out because of the journey I have and because I'm so honest and unapologetic really about the way I believe reality works and the way I believe personal and transformational work really works.
Wow, that's unreal. And you've articulated that extremely well. And I must say, but I want to find out and I want to talk more about the turning point. What was the change moment for you as to, you had all these things, but you realized that they weren't manifesting into ways that make you happy. When and what was that moment what did that moment feel like to you to go, I'm going to make this change and this is what I'm going to do. And this is the journey I'm actually going to I'm going to seek. And this is what I want to find out more about myself. And I'm going to do it regardless of what anyone thinks and says of me, because I'm sure you had people like that in your life as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I've had honestly many pivotal decision points. I call them decision points. Every moment's a decision point, but I guess I'll share two that were really important. One of them was in business school. When I started my business as a coach and a teacher online, and it was so obvious to me that this was my path. And it's a very untraditional path out of Stanford Business School. And there were a lot of jobs I could have had that would have been more secure and higher paying, and would have looked really good, and what all my peers and friends were doing. And, when I shared what my plan was, my people very close to me in my life, friends and family, completely didn't believe in what I was doing and made that very clear to me. And same with the career counselors at Stanford. And it was just one of these things where I knew intuitively not to get advice from anyone and to just put blinders on, because everybody is always going to give you advice, totally well-intentioned, but give you advice based on their own personal experiences, and to confirm what has been true for them in their lives. But truth is very subjective, and what's true for somebody else may not be true for you. And yes, maybe somebody else wouldn't be on the path that I'm on, but I have learned to go within myself and seek my own guidance, regardless of what anybody else thinks. So that was a big one. Really, really kind of like going against the advice of everyone in my life who I really respected to start my business. And it's really so much more than a business, it's my mission and my calling.
It's your purpose in life.
It's my purpose in life. And after I started my business, I was engaged, and this is where it really became clear that I was meant to walk a more spiritual path. Still very closeted at the time. And the whole year I was engaged, I was receiving guidance. And I've been receiving guidance from the spirit world my entire life. It's been, I believe, like one of the greatest advantages I've had in life is how clear my channel is and how much I receive.
It's like a superpower.
It is like a superpower that we all have, by the way. Most people neglect it. Some people are more attuned than others, but everybody can develop it. And I had been neglecting it for so long and living in my brain instead of my heart, walking the Silicon Valley path that I was on, that it hadn't been as attuned as it was when I was younger. But when I was engaged, it started to become very attuned. And I started to receive messages like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they were so obvious, so explicit. And they all said, don't get married. And this was incredibly disturbing to me, because I was in love. I had planned my future in life and envisioned my future in life with this person. And also, I'm a fiercely loyal person. So I had said yes. And the idea of not honoring that wasn't even on the table for me. Like, I was going to go through with this. But the guidance was very explicit not to get married. I didn't understand why. And so, again, it manifested in all sorts of negative ways. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. You could knock me over with a feather. I was physically very unwell. And eventually it got to the point where somehow I got the ovaries to call it off. I honestly don't know. It's the hardest thing I ever did. And it immediately impacted and changed almost everything in my life, from the person I loved and was my best friend, losing that person, but also losing a lot of other people in my life too. And my home, and I was basically completely broke as well. So I remember that day giving back the ring and moving out, and this is total rock bottom for me. I remember telling myself, like, Anna, this is going to be the worst year of your life, but it'll be worth it, because 5 years from now you'll be happy. And the opposite was true. It ended up being the best year of my life. It was absolutely the most challenging, but it was the best. And almost immediately, everything started aligning for me. Literally that day, for the first day in a year, I started sleeping again. I started eating again. I became very guided, and I hopped aboard what I call the magical universe train, which is where everything becomes synchronicity, like literally everything. Every single person I met after that, everything started aligning in my business. Life became very magical. And my psychic gifts completely reactivated, like instantaneously. And I realized, wow, that guidance I've been getting, this, if I follow this, my life will become a dream, and I can teach other people to do this as well, to let themselves be guided instead of muscling through everything with their brain, which is what I had been programmed to do. And I was really good at playing that game. I could do it, but it wasn't fulfilling and it wasn't making me happy. And if I follow the guidance, if I follow what lights me up, life becomes a dream. Life becomes very magical. And I've been on the magical universe train ever since.
Love that.
Yeah,
I
everything
love that.
lines up that way. So that was certainly one of many, but one of the most significant decision points for me.
There's a few things. There's little parts that I want to dive deep into and find out. So like, okay, so for you, having people, and firstly being able to neglect this common path of your peers, family traditions, outsiders, counselors, but maybe, advice guidance at your universities or colleges, and they're saying you should do this, you shouldn't do that. How did you muster up so much self-belief and so much self-discipline and so much belief within yourself that the decision that you made, regardless of anyone else's advice or opinions, you were going to stay strong to it? That's what I find really, really inspiring, because I feel like there's so many great moments in life and things that we believe in, but other people have an opinion and it changes what our beliefs are instantaneously. How do you stay so committed to that?
Well,
despite all the fallback and despite the people that probably left your life, and despite the people that probably said things about you that weren't true and took it the wrong way, how did you hold it together and how did you do it?
Your relationship with yourself is the number one thing. And it affects all of your other relationships. It affects your relationship with life and with the universe. And so I have found that by accommodating everybody else, you completely lose yourself and you completely lose your happiness. And that just wasn't something I was willing to compromise on. And the most challenging part of the path is losing people. That's been the most challenging part for me. And with all my clients that I work with, I find that to be commonly the most challenging thing. But if you've been best friends with your friends from high school your entire life, you probably aren't evolving. Mm-hmm. And evolution is this path to ascension. This path to ascension is this path of merging with your higher self. Your higher self is who you really are. It is this consistent and persistent voice, almost like hovering above yourself, that is guiding you all the time. And the more you trust that voice, the more you will align with who you really are. And yes, people may fall away, people may doubt you, people may even lash out at you, but those aren't your people. And the more you take off your coats, the more you align with your higher self, the brighter you will shine. And what I call your unique energetic signature, which we all have glimmering inside of our hearts, the more your unique energetic signature shines through, and your people will find you. And it almost doesn't even matter, because you find yourself.
Yeah, wow.
And all of the happiness is within. People are searching for happiness outside of themselves with the car or the certain job or the certain relationship or the newest like sneakers or whatever it is that you were programmed to believe is going to make you happy is going to make you happy for about 5 seconds. And then you're going to be alone in your house, maybe with a lot of people that you've been trying to please that are sort of in your life, but actually deeply unfulfilled. And that's how most people live their lives. And I've never been willing to do that. Like my entire life, I've never been willing to do that. And so when you ask how, it's a little bit of a difficult question to answer, because I believe in order to serve my mission, I was kind of designed with this innate trait of being unwilling to compromise when it comes to my own path to evolution. And it hasn't been easy. It's made for a very, very challenging journey for me, because it's led for constant reinvention and constant rebirth and constant shedding of skin. But it is incredibly fulfilling. And to me, that is what makes me happy, is fulfillment and alignment with my higher self, and understanding that truth is very subjective. What is true for me, Anna, may not be true for you, Sam. So if you are listening to what everybody else is telling you, again, they may be completely well-intentioned. They may love you, but really what they're doing when they're sharing advice is confirming and reinforcing the choices that they've made in their own lives. And what they've been brought up to believe, and what they've been brought up to have learned, and where they've learned that from. It all comes from their own journey and their own place, right? Exactly. And the true power, true empowerment, true embodiment comes from within. And if you are looking outside of yourself for answers, for guidance, you are not embodied. You are not empowered. You may be able to find resume success, on paper success, but that's not what success is. And I really encourage all of my clients from the beginning to define, what is success for you? What does that actually look like? Because on the surface level, it may look like a big engagement ring, or it may look like, having a certain position at a certain company. But when I really peel back the layers for them, that's not what it's about. They want those things because they believe those things will make them happy. And we can actually optimize for happiness itself, for fulfillment itself, by tuning that, antenna inwards instead of outwards, and really tuning into yourself and what is happiness for you, what is fulfillment for you. And thank you very much for sharing that, because we hear it all the time, with people from probably all walks of life. But if we're talking about people from a celebrity background, or people who seem like from an outside looking in, they've got it all, but they're still searching for that answer because they're not happy, and maybe they're turning to drugs or some sort of abuse or an addiction, and something doesn't seem right, something's off. And it's really important. I find it very fascinating as to how you've been able to tune into this inner self and this dial inside of you in a way that can really change not only the course of your life and your journey, but can really bring you real happiness, despite whether you have the things that you thought would have brought you the happiness. Yes. And I know that you do a lot of this stuff, with your transformational coaching and helping people feel and become unstuck and not feeling like they're stuck all the time. Is there any quick fixes, or is there any quick ways for people to be able to be more in tune with their inner self, so that they can be more aligned with their, higher self? And how does all that work? What are any tools or takeaways that people can pick up from this conversation right now? Absolutely. Well, first, hear me when I say you are never stuck, and it's never too late to change your mind, and you're never in too deep. And wherever you are right now is just perfect. And it's been my darkest parts of my journey that have actually propelled me into the light. I think of it like a slingshot. Like the deeper you go into the darkness, actually, the more potential you have to sling into the light. And all of this can serve you in a positive way. When it comes to tuning into your inner compass, this is a practice. And you've got to show up every single day with yourself as your greatest compass. And this will be a practice every time, and it's not going to be perfect, but you get to get in the habit of asking yourself, is this true for me? Anytime anybody's giving you advice, ask yourself, first of all, you can thank them, you can honor them that that's true for them, and then get in the habit of asking yourself, is this true for me? And to get that answer, you really want to tune into your heart. So we're taught in Western culture to believe that the soul resides in the brain, if you even believe in a soul, and that the brain has the answers. The brain has neurons in it that compute things and give you a yes or no, but that's actually not true. We have brain neurons all over our entire body, but especially in our gut and in our heart. And this will get a little esoteric, but we have these 7 chakras. The 3 lower chakras are our body, the 3 upper chakras are our spirit, and then the heart, the 4th chakra, the middle chakra, is really a portal to our higher self that connects the spirit world and the physical world. And the more you can reside your soul in your heart, the more you can let yourself be guided. And your heart is speaking to you all the time, and I'm going to teach you the way to know if it's your heart speaking or your head speaking. So our brains are really, really good at analyzing large amounts of information, making pros and cons lists, telling stories, whereas our heart doesn't analyze information. Our heart is actually where our intuition lies. And there are studies, if you look into the Heart Math Institute, really incredible institution, has shown that the heart actually has predictive powers. It is intuitive. There's one study in particular where participants, their heart is being monitored, and participants are shown images that are either pleasurable or disturbing. So like pictures of puppies or pictures of a murder scene. And it's been shown that the heart responds to the photo not only before the participant sees the photo, but before the photo has even been chosen. What? Before the participants know what the photo is. So regardless of what you believe about spirit, about your soul, science has shown us that there is intuition, and it resides in our heart. And I've really, really tapped into this, and what is the heart? What is the head? Because we have these internal dialogues happening in our head all the time. The way our heart speaks to us, I've found that it's a deeper voice, and it's what I call consistent and persistent. So it speaks to you in short answers. It might be a word or a phrase, and it's consistent. It's always going to give you the same answer. Whereas the brain, you can flip-flop. It might be on Saturday, it might give you one answer, Sunday, a different answer.
And it changes, yeah.
And it's persistent. It always bubbles to the top. So in the example of calling off my wedding, I did not want to call off my wedding, you guys. Like, that was the last thing I wanted to do. So every single day, my brain would tell me meandering stories of reasons why I should get married, and how, would I ever find anyone like him? And am I going to be alone forever? And wow, he's really such an amazing guy. He loves me so much. I could always convince myself to stay, and it would maybe make me feel good for between 30 minutes and like 24 hours. But then that consistent, persistent voice that was short and low, and it's like this knowing, would bubble up to the top and say, don't get married, don't get married. And it's persistent. It's going to keep coming up. If you've had this internal knowing, for instance, to leave your job, your brain might tell you to stay. Like, am I really going to make money pursuing my passion? Am I making like the worst decision ever if I stay? So your brain will convince you, but that consistent, persistent voice that says, pursue your jewelry business. That's your heart. And the more you attune to your heart and listen to it, it's like a muscle. It gets stronger. That signal gets stronger. You can hear it more clearly, and you can let yourself be guided. And as you do that, you will see how things become very magical, because your heart knows what's up. Your heart will guide you. Also, you're going to want to figure out whatever your practices are that help to quiet the mind so you can actually hear the heart, whether that's meditation or surfing or yoga or going for walks in nature. Anything could be meditation, really, as long as it quiets your mind. Listening to music, as long as it quiets your mind so you can actually hear your heart. Because our minds, especially in Western culture, are so loud and never turn off that it can be really hard attune yourself to the frequency of your heart.
Well, and that being said, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. And it does, you say it in a way which just, yeah, you articulate it exceptionally well, and you're very gifted at those things. So yeah, you should be very proud of what you've done and the journey that you're on. What are some of the self-care strategies that you do so that you can listen to your heart more? And what do you do when you find yourself maybe your head's getting a bit too loud, and that you need to quieten it down so that you can focus on what your heart's really telling you? What are some things that you do, Anna?
I have so many tools in my arsenal, and that's what I recommend. People are, a lot of times when I do podcasts or interviews, people actually ask me, what's your routine? And I always say, I don't have a routine, because routines stifle me. I am a spirit. I need different things on different days, depending on how I am feeling and what I have going on that day. So I have all sorts of tools in my arsenal, but the things that are most powerful for me, number one is nature. Nature, our planet Earth, vibrates on a frequency that is incredibly healing. And in the modern age, especially if you live in a big city, you are constantly getting dragged to another frequency. And so the more you can get in nature, breathe in fresh air, or get in the ocean, which is incredibly healing, get your feet on the ground, you will actually raise in frequency and get into the higher frequency emotions like love and bliss. And one of the amazing things about nature is it's so consistent. Like, have you ever gone for a hike and not felt better? Have you ever gotten in the ocean and not felt better? Like, it is so reliable. So that's a big one for me. I make sure I get my feet on the earth, my bare feet on the earth, for at least 30 minutes every day. And my other favorites are breath accompanied by yoga and stretching. This is going to get a little esoteric, but we have
I'm keeping up with you here.
Okay. We only use a very small amount of our DNA, and we're told that there are only 5 senses. There are many more than that. We're only using a tiny part of our DNA and of our brain. And part of the information I receive is that we can unlock parts of our DNA that are actually hidden in certain parts of our body that we're not moving. And by stretching my body and by moving my body accompanied with breath, our breath is what grounds our spirit into our body. I've had thousands of very profound spiritual experiences. So yeah, I would say those are my favorites: nature, and then yoga and stretching.
Yeah, wow. And that while they're your favorite, you still got a lot of tools in your toolbox.
Oh
so
yeah, I
so
love chanting. Chanting a super powerful mantra, Kundalini. I could go on. There are many.
A question I want to ask, probably more of a personal question. Have you re-linked with any of your old foes from back when you were going through college that have sort of seen you on this journey and that are like, I actually want to know more about it now. Can you help me? Have you?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of my friends from college, from business school, I'm like the weird spiritual one. But that also means that they come to me for a lot of advice. And I know that I'm always kind of expanding them or challenging them outside their comfort zone. And I always tell them, don't take what I say. If you ask me, I will share how you might be able to find these answers within yourself. And then you can take that away and do with it what you like and see what's true for you. Again, what's true for me may not be true for you.
Totally.
A lot of people, of course, have fallen out of my life. They're not on this frequency, and my ideas really challenge their belief systems, which make them uncomfortable. And not everybody wants to expand in that way.
And that's okay though, isn't it? And I mean, that's okay. And there's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast right now that are going to feel the same way. And it's all right, isn't it? Letting people go that have been with you your whole life because you might have chose a different path and they're no longer on that path with you. It's totally okay.
If you are dimming your light in order to accommodate those people, you are really disservicing yourself, and you're preventing more people from really finding you. Like, my people find me because I'm shining really bright, my true signature. But yes, of course, people have I wouldn't say like fallen out of my life, but you have times in your life where you're closer with certain people, and you have times in your life where you're not really resonating on the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now, when what's happening with the global climate, so many people have the time now in quarantine to go within and start asking the deeper questions, and that maybe they never had time to ask before because they were in such a constant state of stress, anxiety, and fatigue because
Rush.
they were living in a 9-to-5 job that they hate. And now all of a sudden they have this opportunity to really tune into who they really are and maybe press the reset button on, is this really the life that I want to be living? Maybe they lost their job, or maybe they're working from home now and they're realizing, wait, I never actually liked my job anyways. And maybe this is an opportunity for me to actually do what I'm passionate about. And as they do that, they start to hop aboard the magical universe train. And yes, I've had many people reach out to me specifically in recent months that are beginning their spiritual journey. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting, isn't it? And it must be nice for you to be on this journey yourself, from a place of thinking that this is the right path to then getting completely on a new path, and
Yeah.
then taking so many steps. In your mind, you probably didn't find it was such a risk, so to speak. Yeah, I'm sure it would have been the hardest thing in your life to say no to that wedding and
Yeah.
to turn it down and all that sort of stuff. But to get to this place where you're at right now, it must feel. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. And I always do what makes me feel good. That's how you know something is aligned, even if it's challenging, because we tend to overweigh short-term pain. So I have thousands of people that reach out to me all the time and say, I wish I did what you did. I knew intuitively not to get married, and now I have kids and I'm in a marriage that I don't want to be in. And I tell them it's never too late to change your mind. But people tend to know when things are off for them, but they go ahead anyways because they overweigh that short-term pain of, oh, how could I possibly call off my wedding? That's would be so challenging, and what would people think of me? And yes, that's true. But remember, when I called mine off, I'm like, this is gonna be the worst year of my life. It really wasn't. And we underweigh that long-term pain of, if I don't call off my wedding and go through the short-term pain, what is the long-term pain of consistently having that heart voice bubble to the surface and say, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, every single day for the rest of your life? Like, what about that pain?
It's
So
yeah, it's interesting because while so many people, and I can resonate with this too, it's like, at what stage do you start listening to that voice, the one that comes to the top? Stop, do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that.
once you start listening, you never stop.
Yeah, true. And it's big. And as you said earlier, I mean, it's becoming more in tuned with that inner compass to a place where you've got to also trust it too, right? You've got to work with it to a point where you trust it enough to go, okay, it is telling me the truth, and it's not trying to sabotage my current situation, and it's not working against what I'm trying to achieve, and it's here to save me. It's here to look out for me. It's here to do right right by me, instead of, yeah. Because a lot of thoughts come and go. You and I both know that, Anna. A lot of thoughts into our brains come and go on a probably every minute. Do this, do that, or what's this thing? What's that? Can I learn more about that? It's like, what do you take on? What don't you take on? There's a lot at play here. But as you said, and as what you do best, and I know the work that you do, you help people on that journey to to transform, to rewire their thinking, their brains, so that they can, so that not only they can live better for themselves, but they can live in what you call the higher self. And then they can start, on a journey of purposeful freedom, and, this really nice journey to
that voice of, I could do this, I could do that. That's the autopilot mind. That's where most people are residing, and they're in reaction mode. When you slow down and attune to your higher self, you can get in responding mode. Responsibility is the ability to respond. And so an event can happen, and all events are neutral. There is no good or bad. And rather than just automatically reacting to it, you can respond to it and make intuitive choices. And there's so much power in that. When you learn how to respond instead of react, you become very powerful to create, to manifest, to align with who you really are.
Mm. That's a beautifully said, Anna. Beautifully said. And before we sort of get to a close on this episode, I mean, I could probably talk to you all day because you're giving me an absolute teaching lesson here, and I'm learning so much from you, and I love it.
Oh,
What's the one of the biggest things that you've learned on this journey for yourself? I mean, you said earlier you're always learning, and every single day is, you're working on things that work and don't work. What's your biggest takeaway that you've learned yourself?
we all come here with very unique gifts. And even if you're not consciously aware of it yet, you came here with very unique gifts. And they're these things that come so naturally to you that you don't even see them as gifts. And they're probably the things that people go to advice for you on. They're probably the things that you're giving away for free that you totally take for granted. And the universe needs your gifts. And if you are living a life that's not aligned for you, if you're working in a 9-to-5 job that you hate, if you're living somebody else's dream that you inherited from your parents or that you learned on TV was supposed to make you happy, you are robbing the universe of those gifts. And a lot of people are programmed to believe that, oh, if I follow what lights me up, if I do what I'm passionate about, if I share my gifts, how am I going to make money? And it is, trust me when I say that these gifts can help so many people. And if you share them and you serve the world with your gifts, you will receive abundance back, because that is the language of the universe, giving and receiving. And the more I give out to the world, completely because it's what I love to do, the more abundance I receive back. And I've never worried about the finances behind things. And if I did, I would not be where I am now, because trust me, everyone at Stanford Business School told me I would never make any money. I mean, I had everyone in my life tell me that. And if I had listened to that, or if I had prioritized money, I would be deeply unhappy right now. I'm positive about that. You are very guided and very supported. We all have teams of guides and light supporting us. Whether you're consciously aware of this or not, you do have a team around you, and they're supporting you, and you will start to get in contact with them as you align with your higher self. But yes, don't rob the world of your gifts, I guess, is the ultimate message I have here. And start to share them with the world and see what happens, because people will recognize them. You'll end up really helping someone, and you'll see how much value you are providing by just doing what you love. And also that will serve you in a way and give you this energy and fulfillment that allows you to create something so much bigger than you ever can if you're not sharing your gifts and are not fulfilled. That's the type of thing that really drains your life force energy. And when you share your gifts, what you do and you're passionate about, you get fueled with life force energy. So you're able to create and offer so much more.
You just said that so perfectly then. It was unreal. And you've been sharing your gifts for the last 45, 50 minutes on this podcast with everyone who's listening, and myself, which I'm very grateful for, and I'm very grateful for. And I'm very glad and lucky that we were able to connect and meet not so long ago. And I'm glad that you're doing well. I'm glad that you're on this this journey of greatness. And, I can't wait to share this episode with our listeners, but also your insight and wisdom as well. And on that note, where can people find you? If they want to track you down, they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about you, they want to reach out to you, where do they find you, Anna?
Yeah, so my handle for everything is I am Anna Wood. So my biggest channel is Instagram. Come say hi to me there. I have a YouTube channel as well, I am Anna Wood. And then my website is I am Anna Wood.
Yeah, she's putting out some amazing things into the world, and certainly sharing her lights and her wisdoms with people from all walks of life to help them on their journeys too. So you've definitely helped me today, Anna. You've definitely given me some insight and more understanding into the work that you do, and some of the things that I could probably look at for in my own life. Some of the things that sort of are signposts or signals in my own journey that are trying to keep me on a certain path. And it's really, really important not to get distracted by some things that do come into your life, you know, for right or wrong. It's important to stay on your journey because of why you're on it in the first place, and to remember why you're passionate about it and what you're trying to achieve internally, I feel is the most important thing. And you nailed it today in this episode. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. This chat was so fun.
No, you're a legend, and I'm very grateful for you. And I can't wait to catch up with you in human form. Look after yourself.
I know.
Take care, self-care, practice it often. And remember, it ain't weak to speak, but much love, and keep crushing life.
You too. Much love. Thank you for having me.